Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining this month's The Lonely CEO series in partnership with Indeed and Luminary. A very warm welcome to you all. I'm Juliet Scott-Croxford, CEO at Worth, and I'm thrilled to have such a great lineup of speakers today. We have Susan Gambradelli, President of Kimberly-Clark Professional at North America, and Kim Seymour, Chief People Officer at WW Formula, formerly Weight Watchers, and moderated by Worth contributor, founder and CEO of Luminary, the brilliant Kate Luzio. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, hello. Firstly, I hope you and your loved ones are keeping well during what continues and has been a challenging time for so many people. Today, we're talking about why happiness in the workplace is crucial for success now more than ever. Leadership was lonely pre-pandemic, but the changes and the challenges and opportunities of leaders and CEOs, and particularly female and minority leaders, have been heightened significantly over the past 6 months. So the essence of this series is really to open up discussions about how top leaders are navigating the recent crisis, from managing the stress of leading teams through uncertain times to tackling challenges of launching new products amidst a pandemic, to developing a more diverse and inclusive workplace and workforce. In a recent survey done by Indeed, 68% of respondents believe happiness leads to success, but only 62% said they feel happy at work most of the time. Luckily, 96% believe that what that 62% feel is achievable for them too. So how do we get people to feel more happy at work more often? And maybe more pressing, what does it actually mean to be happy at work? So we're thrilled to be joined by Kate and Susan and Kim for an intimate discussion about how we can increase workplace happiness right now in particular. Before we start, I just wanted to give a special thanks and appreciation to our partner for this series, Indeed. They are the #1 job site in the world and a very fitting partner for this content series and the topics that we're covering. They have a great resource platform called Indeed Lead, which we'll share a link to at the end of this session, but be sure to check out those resources. And obviously some of what we're discussing today speaks to some of the surveys that they've already done. So without further ado, Kate, I'm going to hand over to you, our moderator, for the session, and we'll get the conversation started. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thanks, Juliet, and welcome, everyone. If you've been to this before, any of our Lonely CEO conversations, you know this is a real discussion. And if you have questions, comments, please feel free to just put them in the chat. I will pull them into the discussion. And I'm actually really lucky because I get to know these two women. And so when I reached out and asked if they would participate in this session, and they both said yes, I was very excited. They both have incredibly stellar careers, very different career paths. One hails or lives in Atlanta, one here in New York, and in two very different organizations, and obviously both women. And when I think about being lonely, I think pre-pandemic. As a leader, they say it's very lonely at the top. It's even lonelier when you're a woman. That was one of my first managers told me that, who happened to be a woman. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that, about being a woman, about being a Black woman as a leader, and really get into what does it mean to be happy at work versus fulfilled versus challenged, and what not only are these leaders doing, but what are their companies doing as they look at their very broad and very diverse and global workforces. Before we do that, and again, if you've been on this before, you know I don't read bios. I really want the women that we talk to talk about themselves and give us their own version of their stories. So Kim, I would love to have I would love to have you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what led you to what you're doing now.
Okay, so Southern girl who some kind of way ended up in Brooklyn. I went to undergrad in Tennessee. I went to law school in Tennessee, and then I decided I'd become a Northerner by going to IU to get my business degree, because even though I knew I wanted to go into HR, I didn't think I understood business enough or corporations enough. So that seemed to be really important, and it turned out to be really important that I had that distinction. I went to GE, I was there for about a decade. I went to Home Depot, which I called GE Junior. I was there for a couple of years, and then I got the call on the right day, ended up at American Express. And all of those progressions were really important to who sits here today. What I learned about myself, what I learned about my craft, what I learned about people, which is ultimately what my business is, my function is about. What motivates them, what keeps them, what drives them, what, you know, how to develop them, how to deploy them in the best way. And ultimately, and as I tell someone, you know, at this point of my HR career, I'm pretty much not going to know anything about benefits. I call 800 number just like you do, but I do know or think I know a lot about what motivates people and how to get the best out of them, how to assess them. So everything along the way has contributed to that person who's kind of seen the movie, but is still open-minded enough to see different endings if you work at it. So I ended up, let's see, and this is an important part of my story. The business part, look, I feel like everyone can craft their own way to success, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, I think. But while I was making plans, somebody else had another plan in the form of a couple of bouts of cancer, a coma thrown in there at one point. So at that point, you do start to think about what's important and where you want to end up. And I've loved every single company I've been with. I still talk to people. Some of them are my closest friends and advisors. But I really wanted to think hard about what I was going to do next. And I wanted it to be impactful in some small way. And I found myself sitting in front of Mindy Grossman one day, and yeah, you know, bada bang, here I am. It took that one breakfast. So I feel like everything has led up to this. And there's a lot of lessons along the way that I think is fitting for the topic once we get to it.
No, absolutely. And Susan Gambardella, just one, I don't know if you knew this, the way I met Kim was through another mutual friend of ours, Susan Chapman Hughes.
Uh-huh. Yep.
So Susan
Gambardella, since I was 18.
and Susan and I sit on the board of Girls Inc.
Yep.
Together, and that's how I met Susan. But it's a small world, and the business community is even smaller. But and I really want to talk about that crafting your own way and crafting your success in a minute, Kim, because that's a really good lead into the topic at large. But Susan, again, you've had a very long career with one company, and then pretty recently, I mean, not in the last 2 years, made a big switch.
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, Kim, I would imagine you and Susan would be a force in nature to be reckoned with both of you in the room. I can't even describe all that energy, but Kate, thanks a lot for having me, and hello to everybody who's joined today. I'm from Connecticut. I grew up in Connecticut. I spent my high school years in Puerto Rico. I went back to college at the University of Connecticut, where I graduated with a degree in communications, and where I also met my husband, who I'm still married to after 31 years. And we have 2 great kids together. Out of school, originally I went for communications. I thought I wanted to be the next Katie Couric. And what I realized that I obviously did not have the skill of Katie Couric, nor did I want to start out with making what you need to in those jobs in those days, which was a very low pay scale, and I needed to earn a living. And so I was lucky enough to be recruited by Procter & Gamble into their general management training program. And I was there for 5 years, and very much who I am a leader today is really based on what I learned at P&G. A commitment to talent development, to capability building, and also performance management. And I take that with me many, many years later. I left P&G not because I was unhappy, speaking of the topic on hand, but because I saw the opportunity at Coca-Cola to really curate a cross-functional career. And that's exactly what I was able to do for 27 years. And I'm so appreciative of my time there. I started in sales, and that again is a very foundational thing that I carry with me. I think it's really important, no matter where you are as a leader, to never lose sight of where the dollar passes hand And where somebody decides to buy your product, you can never lose sight of that moment. And that's, again, something that I carry with me as a leader. And I was able to really curate this wonderful career at Coke in sales. I led North America integrated marketing, some of our largest sports and entertainment relationships, our media department. I got a crazy call one day when I was at dinner in India on a leadership development program saying, what do you think about being chief of staff for Muhtar Kent? The CEO and longtime chairman of Coca-Cola certainly wasn't on my career plan, but I saw it as an unbelievable opportunity to help him lead his strategic agenda, across the globe in over 200 companies. And then how to make a personal change. Muhtar was leaving the company, and when you're at those roles and there's a change of leadership, you don't necessarily know where you're going to land. I went back into the North America business onto the retail and the consumer side of the division, and that was a personal choice. That was one, to do something that I hadn't done before, but I also had a daughter who was a junior in high school, and I did not want to move her and wanted that stability for her after being traveling for so many times, and I was very happy doing that. But then in 2019, my kids were both leaving. We didn't necessarily have to live in Atlanta. My husband works for a nonprofit, and we had a little bit of flexibility, but we said, let's figure out what's possible. I'm just going to open 2019 up and say, what's possible? I'm ready to do something new. I'm motivated by learning. And I got a call from a company, Advantage Solutions, private equity backed. It's always something that I thought I wanted to do, help bring a company public, and went and left Coca-Cola. It was the hardest decision I ever made, and went over to Advantage and was enjoying that. But then I got a call from Kimberly Clark for a position that I've been always wanting to do, which is to lead a business unit and to have the full P&L all the way from the mills up. And so in February of 2019, I left. And after being with Coke for 27 years and then having 2 jobs in 1 year was certainly not in my DNA. But what really resonates with me about the lonely CEO is, man, it's been lonely. I started in February. I got a chance to go to our national sales meeting. I made a couple of customer calls in New York, and then we were work from home. And when you talk about trying to build trusting, foundational relationships and lead a business that has high demand products in a crisis, it's been pretty lonely. So that brought me here today.
And again, incredible background. I think, Susan, the last time I saw you in person would have been in, I think, January for the national board meeting, maybe.
Yeah, or February. March at the luncheon.
Oh, right. And then, my God.
That was it.
This year has really just jammed together. I don't even remember anymore. It's hard to believe that we're now in the holiday season. But so I want to kind of just get into it, and there's lots of chats and going on, and I'll bring that in. But you both lead big organizations in different ways, and many people are feeling just like we are, overwhelmed, overburdened, isolated, anxious, nervous, this fear because of the not only being at home all the time, but sickness. They're overworked. They just have a lot on their plates, particularly working moms. But we've all felt that way in normal times. And then you throw on the pandemic. How are you as leaders looking across your organization and working with your employees to understand how they're feeling and then put in place new opportunities or policy? Or is that just a continuous work in progress? And I'll open it to you both, because you both lead organizations in different ways.
Well, I'll say what I think about every single day is how to normalize all of this a little bit. And to your point, how do we replicate some of the things we're missing? How do we embrace some of the things that actually are great about this, and that we can amplify a little bit, and both from a policy perspective, but also just from a cultural perspective. I think that what has dialed up in this time, the need for empathy and vulnerability and flexibility for people, and being transparent about that, not being opaque about the fact that, no, this is what we're doing. Your kid comes, into the frame, fantastic. Everyone, please just act like that's the world now, because that is the world now. What I worry a lot about is people's they have their own special brand of FOMO. They got to be in every meeting. They're working 2 or 3 hours more than they did before the pandemic. They are Zoom fatigued, all of this. So empowering people to make decisions for themselves, to your point, that will make them happy, that will make them productive, that will make all of this not quite so overwhelming, giving the power to them to do that. You don't have to be on every Zoom.
Right.
Really. There are other ways to engage and perform and execute than being in this very, very draining environment. So giving resources, giving tips, giving tools, but most of all, giving permission.
Right.
To make it however that you need to make it. Everyone will survive. I promise you that. I promise your boss will, the CEO will, I will, as long as you continue to be very upfront about what you need in order to deliver and to perform. Our job is to remove obstacles, whatever those obstacles might be. So I think a lot about that every single day, so that people can stop holding their breath, because I think that's what people are doing.
Yeah.
Just,
that's such a great point about that they're holding their breath, right? Because I remember sitting in March thinking when Governor Cuomo said you have to shut down, I'm thinking it's 2 weeks, right? Remember we were all saying, get 2 weeks worth of toilet paper.
Yep.
And now we're sitting here 9 months later, right? 9 months for the majority of this country. And that holding your breath, wait, what's next? What's next? What could possibly happen? Kim, just one more thing before we go to Susan. WW obviously so focused on wellness and bringing that into your life and as a way of life, right? I mean, Mindy talks a lot about this. So when you think about, what you think about every day, and then you think about women in particular aren't actually getting that opportunity for self-care and wellness. How do you talk to, or what are you hearing from your own employees from a wellness organization around what they're incorporating into their lives?
So luckily we do have a lot of tools, and some of them we're, pushing out in manufacturing, breaks and meditation and all of this, but all of that matters. So when you talk about that, it's just kind of a broad definition of wellness, it is about more than what you're eating and what you're putting in your body, which, by the way, people need us now more than ever on that front. But also, the mental, we have some meditation apps, and there's the sleep aspect. People are not sleeping the way they need. Just water intake that can help. And then, of course, the physical and getting moving, if that's what you want to do. So for our employees, they have free access to all of that in our app. So that is helping. What we have to help them do is to clear the space in order to do that. Clear the space in order to prioritize your own mental well-being so that you can show up for everyone else. If you don't, it won't be good for anybody. It's almost kind of obvious, but so many people are focused on their families, or focused on their communities or their parents or their whatever it is, that they're way down on their own list. And I think that's really, really dangerous. That's really dangerous at any time, but especially now. You got to make it to the top of your own list and prioritize what will make you happy and well in this moment.
Susan, so I'll remind myself to come back to manager, because as you were talking and about making sure that employees have a healthy dialogue and communication with their managers about what's going on in their lives, right? Understanding the responsibility, the complexity, everything. That's like first and foremost. But if a manager's not trained in order to have those conversations, and so I want to come back to that, because Susan, I want to talk a little bit about your view, you as a leader, but then also Kimberly Clark.
And I'd like to look at it also professionally and a little bit from a personal side too, if that's okay. I think one of the things, you know, I'm still relatively new at Kimberly-Clark, but one of the things that I was absolutely impressed with is that one of our 4 values is caring. And so from the very beginning, Mike Hsu, our CEO, that was the #1 priority, is caring for the safety and the health of our employees. And don't forget, we have mills, you know, many mills across the country where safety is #1. And then also making sure from a caring standpoint that we're out there providing the right tools. And I would say we definitely went through a journey, because it was the care and safety, making sure everybody's safe, closing the office, those kind of protocols, to then it was like, how can we connect in this virtual environment? So then there were all these Zoom happy hours and then all these Zoom connections. And then we were like, whoa, everybody is too busy. Cut the Zoom happy hours, just let them go be with their families. And now we're looking at it and going, gosh, we're in this, like, definitely, we've said that we're not opening our offices till next summer. And that's a long, cold winter, right? So really the need for tools of how to engage, and we spend a lot of time talking about burnout and making sure that people are energized. And honestly, I'd love to hear all the ideas from anybody on this topic, because we certainly haven't figured out. But what I've found as a leader is that, first of all, you have to demonstrate caring. You have to meet people where they are, and where they are every day can be different from one to the next. And I even find it myself. I mean, the first 2 weeks of September, I was fatigued.
Yeah.
You know, and I just had to take a check out and listen to myself, because to the point I think on the chat is that if you're not the right manager, if you're not there for your people, then you can't support them.
Exactly.
And so really being, I think, attuned to yourself personally is important. But if I could just also say from a personal standpoint, what I understand is that one of the #1 questions that are going to be asked college kids are, what did you accomplish during COVID? And I think that's such a pressure, right? I think we all sort of feel pressure, like, what did you do during COVID? Did you learn Russian? Did you redo your house? Did you know, transform the organization? And it's such a pressure. And so I sort of thought about that with my team and said, not what am I going to accomplish, but how do I choose to show up during COVID? And when I made that switch in my mind, it helped guide me of how I wanted to show up for my team, that servant leadership. How do I show up for them so I can be the best leader for them, and so that they can be the best that they can during these crazy times?
And how do you think, again, although you're relatively new, you could also put the cap on, and Kim, you could do the same with American Express and the other organizations. How do you think that these organizations, these big global, right? I can't even imagine, right? I was a banker for 20 years. I can't even imagine my life now if I was still a banker. I was so used to jumping on a plane, getting out, seeing clients every single day to Zoom, right? Do you think, based on the 20 plus years that each of you have in your career, that this will be the hardest thing your employees will ever have to go through? I mean, professionally, forget personal, because we know there are a lot of challenges.
I think so.
Yeah.
I hope so. I hope it doesn't get worse.
Yeah.
I think every generation has its thing, right? Like this for me is the hardest thing, because everything's changing. Whatever you thought you were accelerating, it's accelerated even faster. You can't physically be with people. The world is changing so fast, and then you have people obviously being impacted personally, losing loved ones. So none of us have been in this situation, but I feel like every generation has their big moment. Like up till now, I would have thought it would have been living through 9/11, you know, or after that, it was the financial crisis, you know, and so I think the benefit of having experienced leaders is to be able to draw back on those experiences and really take the learnings from each one that make you better, unfortunately, for the next time. And I've found drawing on those experiences have helped me maybe be a little bit more stable in my leadership, as opposed to so reactive when you could be.
But go ahead, Kim.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, I will co-sign on a couple of things that Susan said, because, you know, to me, this is the hardest, professionally and personally. And I've told some, And a friend of mine pointed out, but you've had cancer twice. This is the hardest thing. It absolutely is. But what I hope is that when we come out of this, and we will,
Yeah.
the lessons learned live on as well about what's really important, professionally or personally. I look at this closet I have here with these heels I haven't put on in, 8-9 months, the bags that I had, the clothes. What's really important, both personally and professionally, what do I need in my career to feel fulfilled or to feel, it's worthwhile me showing up?
Yeah.
I don't want to lose that once we emerge from this. I think I'll be a better leader. I think I'll be a better person once we come out of this.
So, one of the things that we think about what our parents went through and others. This is the first time ever there are 4 generations in the workforce, right? From baby boomer to Gen Z, really, that are working not at the age of retirement. When you look at the baby boomers that are still there, they're not close to retiring. And then you've got this new workforce. Each of these generations look at the one before them and say, well, they did this wrong, or we're going to do it better. So now we're all in this together, right? And the definition of happiness, the definition of success, fulfillment across generation has changed dramatically, right? I'm a Gen Xer, which I think both of you are as well. Susan, yes,
You're kind.
You're on the cusp.
We'll go with it.
Right, you'll go with it. My parents are amazing. They're baby boomers. It was work really hard, save your money, have the stability, have a job. And that's what I learned. So when I ripped the Band-Aid off and decided to become an entrepreneur after 20 something years in corporate America, it was like, they were like, what? Oh my God, a car is going to crash. But that is where I found that I could be my best and happiest. I probably didn't realize there was going to be a pandemic, and I'm a small business. That's another story. But do you think, as you look across your employees, again, your employee base, but also yourself, the definition of success has changed to, Kim, to what you said? I hope that when we come out of this, I'm going to look at things differently. The person that I am today. Is that buying the bags or buying the clothes? Not that those are bad things, because I do the same, but that the definition of success and fulfillment and happiness at work has changed.
I certainly, well, I was going to say, I hope so, but no, it's not that I hope so. I hope that each person comes to whatever their conclusion is for themselves, regardless of what anyone else says. I have long been on a mission to, right alongside authenticity, and whatever that means for an individual, just allow people to decide for themselves what nirvana looks like, and then clear a path for them to find that for themselves. Like, don't put unnatural obstacles in their way, whether that be about gender or race or outlook, any kind of life outlook. All I really care about, and this might sound bad, all I care about is how effective you are at your job. How you get there, what you bring to it, I'll honor it, but I don't really care. I don't care enough to exclude it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I just really want an environment for everyone. And if not now, oh my gosh, when? But for everyone to define for themselves, you know what? It's not about being Mindy. There's only, in the end, there can be only one. It's not about having that CEO job. It is about crafting a life where I can go to yoga at 5 o'clock, sign off, get back on, and whatever that means for you. I want people to have that space and to see their path to fulfillment through that lens, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. And at the end of the day, I'm there at the end to say, did you deliver in a quality way?
Right.
That's really all I care about. How you got there, completely up to you.
Right.
I think you're absolutely right. And I would say it took me a while to figure it out, that what really only mattered is what mattered to me. I didn't need to lead somebody else's version of what I thought my life should be. And, very early on, I think things change as you go through your life and you figure out what you want your leadership legacy to be. Very early on, my position was all about success, right?
Yeah.
I was earning, striving. And at some points in my career, my job was functional. It paid the bills for my family while I found happiness in other parts of my life.
Right.
And then it shifted again. And so I always tell people, you know, your answer can be for now.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, for now, this is what's important to me. And you absolutely have the right to change it. And you can. And so I think, you know, that question that you asked us between happiness and is the pursuit of happiness, you know, does that equal meaningful work or not? I think it's all in the eyes of the beholder, just like Kim said.
And you know, the success for me means if someone listening to this early in their career arrives at that conclusion earlier than we did,
Yeah.
much earlier than we did, that is success to me. Another thing about success, you talk about, you know, just being a Black executive. My shoulders went down one day when I came in the office back in the day when we did that, and I walked through the corridor on the way to my office. I get my office, I'm putting my bag down. There's this tentative knock at the door, and someone that I had said hello to on the way through, she was a brand new employee, African American female, came through and said, "I just want to say I have never seen a Black executive with braids before."
With brains.
With braids. I've never seen that
Yeah.
in my entire career. And I've always felt like I couldn't do it because I had never seen it. She said that out loud. At that moment, I knew I was successful.
Yeah.
At that moment. Nothing else ever has to happen, truthfully. If I can make a way for someone else to feel like, however it is you show up, for her it was braids, for someone else it might be my, you know, odd choices, odd fashion choices, or odd directness, whatever it is. Judge me by how effective I am at the end of the day. And for someone else to know that, that is success for me.
Exactly. And I think that's so important. You know, we, and you both know me and what we're doing at Luminary. What I say is, you know, my definition of success is not going to be the same as Susan's, and it's not going to be the same as yours, Kim. Right. And that's okay. Right. And that doesn't, you know, when I was in a banker, people would say, "Oh, you want to be the CEO of the bank." Oh, no, I didn't. That was not what I was striving for. And people would look at me, especially the younger women, say, "Oh, you don't want to be the CEO, not of the bank." Right. I don't want to deal with the regulations, right? It's no fun. But I think that you know, Susan, you talked about, and it kind of goes, Kim, to your heart, in that what drives you, that's this idea of caring, right? And caring about your employees and caring about their happiness and what they look at as success, right? So for this young woman, Kim, it was seeing someone, it was that see her, be her. Yep. Right? She knew she could be herself at WW. She knew that she could look up and there was someone that looked like her. Susan, you were talking about the, you know, one of your 4 values is caring, right? Companies can't get away anymore with not caring for their employees. I mean, if the other thing we've learned in this pandemic is, you know, there's no bullshit anymore, right? Like you're going to be held accountable. But in that caring piece, it's really hard to teach caring.
Yes,
it is. And sometimes, you know, caring also equals performance. And there's a line between being too caring and not addressing and giving really strong feedback, and caring equals performance. They can both go together. And so it's a line that you've got to be careful on, of being too, I don't want to say too caring, but you could be too caring and not give people great feedback so they can grow and develop. So caring does equal performance. You know, one of the things that you said, Kate, was about the role that we have as leaders and how we can help guide our people to happier workplaces, right? And I think there's 2 things that really resonate with me. One is, I think our role as leaders is to help people leverage their strengths, because we all know that if people are leveraging their strengths, they're more engaged. To me, that means that they're happier. And we know that workplaces are more productive when they've got engaged employees. And so I really adopted Marcus Buckingham as sort of an expert for me that has guided my leadership style. And I think helping people find their strengths and really helping them guide the work to what they're good at is really key. I think the other thing that's really been important for me professionally, and I've been lucky to work for 2 great companies that have had really strong purposes, is being connected to something bigger than yourself and understanding how what you do every day links up to those purposes. At Coca-Cola, the purpose was to refresh the world and make a difference. You know, I could see how what I did every day linked up to that. And at Kimberly-Clark, our purpose is to lead the world in essentials for a better life. Never before has that been more important. You know, we provide PPE and cleaning products to be able to have clean workplaces. And so connecting people's role to that purpose, I think, is so important for that happiness / meaning for our employees.
So let's talk about the manager piece, right, that I was alluding to earlier, because, and I saw in the chat as well, Justin Douglas is talking a lot about this, you know, playing to your strengths. For most people, and I'm generalizing, but to attain the next level is to become a manager. And that's how you move up in your career, right? But yet a lot of organizations don't train their managers, right? It's sort of great. You wanted to be a manager. Here you go. Now you're on your own. And some organizations do, right? But now this idea of playing to your strengths and having real conversations with your teams, and not only your teams, but your peers, as well as your own managers, is so important, right? And so how do we start working as a society to have these much deeper conversations where, Susan, to your point, it's not just about I care about you and I care, it's about, okay, how does this correlate with your performance? Because we know if you're happier, if you're playing to those strengths, you will perform better. But that's hard to teach managers to be able to have those conversations. And I don't know, again, you're leading an organization, Kim, you're running a people organization. How do you have those conversations with managers so that it starts with a Mindy or the CEO of Kimberly-Clark, but how does it then go down?
I'll start. I think, and hopefully I'm going down the right direction. Actually, I was having this conversation a little bit earlier today about the fact that Mindy, the executive committee, myself are constantly communicating, and we're getting through, and we're getting a lot of credit for that. But ultimately, an employee wants to know that their direct manager shares that belief, because Mindy can say all day long, I need everyone to take time off. I need you to take vacation. Yeah. But if a person doesn't feel like their leader is on that same page, it's all for nothing. So I might not go in and say, I need you to focus on your employees' happiness. Mm-hmm. But what I do say is you need to be really in tune on what is going on with your team. Mm-hmm. What obstacles do they need cleared for them? Communication is key. And one of the things we did was take an inventory of what allowed us to move our offline business online in 6 days. What made that happen? And do an inventory of those things. And the things that came out were things that we've all talked about: empathy, vulnerability, transparency, over communication, a little bit of levity, empowerment, all of these things. And then we tell people, these are the things that have been proven to work. Are you doing this? Right. If the answer is no, we have all of these tools. We have a whole people. Key to our community building, I think, in this time has been our social media, internal social media platform. I don't know if it matters what I say, what it is, but I cannot imagine managing through this without it. We use it heavily. So we've created a whole people leader portal where we are constantly talking about, okay, when you start that meeting, don't go right into the tactics of whatever it is you're trying to talk about. Take a breath. Do you want to do a meditation? Do you want to do a breathing exercise? Do you want to go around and say what everyone is thankful for today in this moment? All these touchy-feely things that if you know me, you know that's not my thing. Yeah. But it has become a leadership impairment. What did I just say? Whatever the word is. Yeah. It's imperative that people focus on these things that we've had to dial up rather than some of the other behaviors that we've had to not rely on in this particular time. And I think going forward, they're going to be much more important as we stay in this environment leading. You're going to have to get good at this. You're going to have to figure out how to connect to people through this and still get the best out of them.
And I think just to build off of what Kim said about, connecting and leading in this environment, I think it absolutely starts with a very clear vision of where the company is going, with very clear objectives and a very clear definition of what are the capabilities that are required to be successful. Mm-hmm. And then once that is painted very clearly, then you can have those conversations in a fact-based way. And it's not to say that it's easy or nearly as easy as I just, described it. It comes with a lot of training, a lot of follow-up, a lot of coaching, and a lot of feedback. But I think people don't know what success looks like until you describe what it looks like when you get there. Yeah. And what the capabilities are.
I absolutely agree. There's a great question. So they came in and said, I've seen some leaders leaning into more flex time, quiet weeks or days, Zoom-free days, as I just know Deloitte now does that, encouraging employees, some mandating employees to take vacation days. Is it too much? Is it distracting from performance, or do you think it will contribute to performance?
It's imperative that we figure out how to give people mental space. When I open my calendar and I see back to back, it affects me. So I can't imagine, given that right now, all of our employees seem to have this weird kind of FOMO in terms of all the Zooms, and I embrace the JOMO, joy of missing out philosophy myself, that I think that they should have. I had a whole meeting on this morning, thinking of Zoom, about how do we give people space, which we've done. No Zoom, no group Zooms on Friday, no group Zooms on Wednesday afternoon. Take a lunch break, no back-to-backs, no 60-minute Zooms. They have to be 45 minutes. They have to be 20 minutes. And even with we shut down. We have extended summer Fridays through the end of the year. So no work happens after 1 o'clock on Friday. And spoiler alert, we're extending it through 2021. Awesome. Even with all of this flexibility, people are finding it hard. Now the question is, well, can we carry over vacation? That's what we'll be announcing on Thursday. No. You know why? Because we're a wellness company. Yeah. And I need you to, even if you don't go anywhere, go in a room, put a sign on the door that says, Kim's on vacation, and don't knock. Do whatever it is. You need some mental space. Now, the truth of the matter is we have a policy that has a minimum of vacation days, not a maximum. So you always could carry over. Yeah. But I don't think that's the right thing to do. People have got to sit still for a minute and get away from the constant group interactions. And I'm just trying to figure out, on behalf of a company, how we enforce that globally, because I've said it, Mindy has said it. Do people do it? Right. I'll say we're probably at an 80% success rate right now.
That's a pretty good success rate.
I'm probably exaggerating.
You know what I think is amazing from all of this is that I do not wish there was another COVID 20 years ago, let's be clear, but I do wish that we could have had these types of conversations 20 years ago when my kids were little and I was trying to manage both career and family. This whole conversation is going to be so good for men and women and just the general population to have the flexibility. And I really feel like we're learning so much about our employees' health that'll just be really good as we move forward. And what I tell my team is figure out what those non-negotiables are for you. Yeah. Like my new non-negotiable that I just put in 2 weeks ago was from 12 to 1, I'm going outside and I'm going for a walk because it's winter. And if I'm going to start at 7 and end at 7 and not see daylight, it will not be good. So that's my new non-negotiable. But I think people need to know what their non-negotiables are, and we've got to help them have that so they can carve out whatever space they need to be able to manage their lives.
I've also said, remember the good old fashioned phone call?
Oh my God, me too, Kim. Oh,
can you just call me on the phone? That way I can put in my ear things and go for a walk. Your point, Susan. And we can talk and walk at the same time.
Oh,
I don't need to see, no offense, I don't need to see you all the time. I didn't before. I don't need
Exactly.
every time now when if I dial into something versus Zoom, I'll dial the Zoom number and then I'll say, listen, is it okay if I don't Zoom? It's been a long Zoom day. People are like, thank you. Thank you. It's like, there's a thing, Kim, to your point, called the phone. Before all of this, we got on the phone on the time, right?
Or I'll go one step further. How about a very clearly and nicely worded email?
Email.
I am a fan of the pre-read. Put the deck in there, give me the salient points in the email. If I'm confused, which I'm pretty quick and I can pick up stuff, but if I'm confused, I'll call you on the phone.
Yeah. No, I think it is the Zoom. I mean, it's great. It's allowed everyone to continue to work and feel good. You know, I always say to people when they're on a Zoom, you know, this is the easiest time to network. And I know that's different than what most people say. They think it's the hardest. You can take a picture of every screen on a Zoom and then go back to that person via email or LinkedIn and say, hey, you made a great point on the Zoom or a great call. You don't need to do it right there, but you can take your time versus you're at these in-person events just handing business cards out, right? And doing small talk. You know, one of the other things that what you guys were both talking about is finding ways to have your team feel more connected, but it doesn't always have to be about work. You know, I run a small company. It's a startup. These people, my team is overworked and they were overworked before COVID, right? So we started, and it's actually continued through, is every Monday we have one team meeting and we say, what's your highlight for the week? And that has to do with the community that we serve, our women in our community, and then a personal highlight. And if I forget, and I forgot this week, I was so focused on, okay, we got to start this week. My team said, whoa, what about the highlights? Like, that's something that teams can look forward to, sharing that it's not just about the work and the back-to-back Zooms. I mean, Kim, you mentioned the kid or the cat or the dog running in. Like, I still love that because I get a window into that person's life that I've never had before.
Yep.
And you can use that and have conversations to talk to your people offline or when you're checking in for that one-on-one, like, oh, you have a cat. Yeah, I just adopted her during quarantine. I'm living alone, whatever it is. I think there's so many ways we can connect with our people. But,
and if we are going to overdo it on Zoom, I would rather they do it on the one-on-ones.
Yeah.
Right. Where you can sit and first of all, start with, how you doing?
Yeah.
No, not the, I'm fine. How are you doing? Talk to me. How can I help? And then if we have time, we'll get into what the call was supposed to be about. I just find that invaluable. And that's coming from me. And I'm a car carrying introvert. I just don't, I was made for quarantine, truthfully, I thought, for about the first couple of months. And now it is, I really want to know. And I've learned so much about my directs that I did not know before in terms of what they deal with. And you know, I think it's made me better. I think it's made them more comfortable. I think we show up with a higher purpose for the company. It's better all the way around. Now, what I want to solve for is the sense of community that is so important to WW. How we cultivate that, how do we care for it, how we nurture it, how do we replicate it? That is what I worry about. I don't think there's enough, tools in the world, but in the meantime, how you live with this and thrive with this is, I think, what people have to focus on.
I think the piece that's missing for me are the stories, right? The folklore and the stories that you get from being together and those experiences that then build on the culture. It's so much harder in a static environment. And you were talking about introverts. One of the things that we're also feeling is for those people who are extroverts who draw off of the energy that's in the room and have good presence and, have used those as their tools. They don't have that now in a very static. So it's interesting based on your personality to, sort of the drains that you have with Zoom based on, your natural strengths.
Yep.
It is really, as a natural, and Susan, that's natural extrovert. It's been, I mean, it is hard, right? I'm at home today because I have a cold. I don't want to get anyone sick. I've already had COVID, so it's not COVID. But
Do you know that? Okay.
I do know that. I do know that. There's only 5 reinfections in the whole world, so I've done all my research. But one of the things that we were hearing, and I'd love to your perspective, because Susan, you touched on it, about it was, okay, we're in all these meetings, then it was the Zoom happy hours. One of the things that we have seen, and because we cover so many different types of women, entrepreneurs, freelancers, working moms, professional, corporate women, is from March, April, May, and part of June, it was heads down, like work. And then it was, I need a break. And then it was, I need things to talk about that are not just work related. So Kim, you talked about the one-on-ones, right? And really getting to know your people. Susan, you've got as we head into this winter, which is going to be worse, right? We knew in the spring, we were at least going to go into spring, into summer, we could be outside. You're in Atlanta, maybe it's a little bit better there, but definitely in New York, I am not looking forward to that. The days are getting shorter. What can we do in this time is it that, I love that idea, Kim, about the Fridays that you guys are carrying over, the summer Fridays into the sort of rest of but what else could we encourage our employees, but not only our employees, manage, because sometimes it's the managers too that aren't leading by example. Clearly you two are, but how do we have those open conversations around, if you need to take a Friday off, take the Friday off. If you need to your point, Kim, put the sign up on the door, don't bother me. I think a lot of women are afraid to do that because they're seeing women leaving the workforce, almost 1 million left between September and October. They're worried about performance. They're worried about their manager saying you're not performing here because you've got all these other things. I think women are scared.
So this is where there's only so much architecture you can put around people to make them do a certain thing. I think you can give them the space to do it. So especially when it comes to, women or anybody actually, because I have a couple of people in mind where I'm really worried. First of all, I'm really asking for managers to dive in and know what's going on with their people, and then solve the real problem. Like if it's that you think, if it's that you're overloaded, what's their resourcing looking like? Can we get them some help? We have a lot of people who, we all know it, are not at capacity. Even though a lot of people are, there's probably some that are not. Can we create some special projects for them to come in and help on some of these things? This could be a win-win for everyone. But if it really is just their own mental FOMO thing going on, I consider it a sign of not great leadership if this is the example you're setting for your people. That if they feel like, if they look at you and see that you have not taken 5 consecutive days off since March, what example are you setting?
Yeah.
When I go on, I film a little video for our people and say, guess what? I'm going on vacation next week. I suggest you do the same thing. 5 days, I'm physically here, I'm not mentally here. So I will come back to you on the following Monday about whatever your super, super important thing is that you're emailing me about right now. If it's really important, you know how to get in touch with me.
Yeah.
I am so clear about that and almost casual about it, as if, well, of course I expect this of you. That goes a long way. But then I need people to be delving in layer to make sure they're doing the exact same thing. Yeah. We've got to make it a leadership requirement and imperative to make space for yourself and others to take the day off, to take days off.
Right.
I hate to hear that data, Kate, about the number of women leaving the workforce. And, let's face it, there's a war on talent. Inclusion and diversity are one of the top 4 things that CEOs are talking about, along with supply chain, digital transformation, and COVID, right? Yeah. And so the fact of the matter is that if you want to have an inclusive and diverse population, including gender and ethnicity and everything else, you've got to figure out how to retain those people. And shame on the CEOs who are not making it a leadership requirement like Kim talked about. I mean, I think our team would actually be surprised how much time we spend talking about how do we make sure that our team is doing okay. We're like running out of ideas. You know, we're doing everything, like we sent a note out that everybody's taking, you know, the leadership team's taking Thanksgiving off. I would encourage you to send that note to your team. No meetings on Fridays. You know, anything that we can get our hands on, we are trying to do. And I really think—
in addition to your day job, as a matter of fact, because you have a day job.
Yeah.
So this is on top of that.
So I say shame on the organizations who are not working on this, because we can't afford, from a business results standpoint, to not have these inclusive and diverse teams. We all know it's better for results, and it's the right thing to do. And there's a war on talent. You know, we might be, you know, high unemployment rates right now, but people are going to choose, and they're going to see how their companies act during COVID and say, I'm testing you. I'm seeing how you handle, to see if I want to be here because I can find meaning here. I can be happy, and I feel like what I do has a purpose, and that you care about me. So it's a wake-up call.
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting. I mean, we saw, and I was a banker in the financial crisis, so I wasn't focused on small business. I was focused on the job that I had, right? I'm now an entrepreneur, but the number of women that either started businesses or left their jobs to start a business, or were let go during that time and became necessity entrepreneurs, right? Skyrocketed. It really led to the growth of the 1,800 new businesses a day started by women for the last 5+ years. What we're seeing now is, because of these women that are leaving the workforce, because their companies aren't supportive, they've been let go, they can't balance it all. You are going to see, I think, in 2021, that number continue to climb, and probably even bigger. But then you've got another problem, is exactly what you said, Susan. You can't have everybody leave the workforce, women, men, people of color, it doesn't matter, to go start their businesses. We need women in the workforce driving, right? And so companies really have to focus on how they're retaining their talent, how they're attracting new talent, and not just that, how they're engaging their talent.
And realizing that there is no need to let the door just swing open for women to walk out of it.
Right.
Now more than ever, flexibility is available. So you have to ask yourself, why aren't you providing the flexibility? We've proven we can work in this environment, which should lead to more women progressing, not fewer.
I totally agree. Kim and Susan, I could talk to you guys all day long. I honestly could. Juliet, we're gonna have to bring them back for a post-COVID conversation. And for everybody that was listening, before I turn it over to Juliet, great chat, great conversation in the chat, questions and comments. But Kim and Susan, just incredible. I love what you're doing, both at Kimberly-Clark as well as WW. You know, Mindy Grossman, who has become a mentor of mine, WW is a partner of ours, but she was one of the first people to check in on me via text when we shut down. And on that first conversation that we had, she said to me, never waste a good crisis.
That's right.
And I took that to heart. And you could take that in any way you want, right? Never waste a good crisis about your relationship, your children, your cat, your job. And you two are just amazing examples of leaders in this world that are walking the talk and really leading by example. And I want to thank you for being on this. Juliet?
It was such a great conversation, and I love the candor. And the thing I love about these discussions is it's so honest and it's very practical. A lot of the information you're sharing, I'm like scribbling down notes. But a few things that jumped out at me: prioritize your own well-being so that you can show up for others. We're all in this together. I thought also what's interesting is being in tune with what is going on in your team. And more than ever, I think everyone has very different needs. And I'm certainly finding that you actually do have to spend time speaking to everyone, and also be respectful of whether they want to spend time on video or call, or actually whether you just give them space. But no, I loved it, and thank you, Kim and Susan, for such an open and candid conversation, and Kate, a big thank you to you and Luminary for partnering on this series with us. Also, a big thank you to Carmen and the team at Indeed for being our partner for this series. Again, be sure to check out their Lead with Indeed content platform for some great talent and leadership insights and resources. We'll also circulate that afterwards. And most importantly, thanks to all of you that joined us today and for your great questions. If you've got any other thoughts that you want to share, email us at community@worth.com. Join us at Worth Live on Thursday, 12 p.m. for the next session of the next normal series on how to make the most of giving this holiday season, with Worth Chair Jim McCann and special guests, and the next instalment of The Lonely CEO before the holidays on December 15th, where we'll be discussing how CEOs can personally develop and what resources there are out there for CEOs and leaders for personal development. You can register online at worth.com/events for this and all of our other events, and be sure to check out our newsletters as well. Thank you so much, everyone. In the meantime, stay healthy and well, and be safe, and create some space for yourself, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Soon.